Welcome to this video on Arphaxad, son of Shem. Our previous video was called Our Most In-Depth Study on Canaan, son of Ham, Where is the Holy Land of the Bible? You needed to get to the end of the video to understand the choice of the thumbnail with the lion. These two videos are going to be very strongly connected. So in a way, we're going to be following on from this previous one. So why are these two videos strongly connected? We get an account from the book of Jubilees, which speaks about Canaan, son of Ham, seizing Palestine wrongfully. It tells us about Canaan going into the land of Shem, dwelling in the land of Lebanon. And the book of Jubilees is a very interesting source because it tells us about how the three sons of Noah divided the earth amongst themselves. And it speaks about these portions and gives us a lot of information. So if we would like to know what happened to the sons of Noah, it makes the book of Jubilees very important and interesting. We're going to speak more about the book of Jubilees. But it tells us that all the land of Lebanon was in the portion of Arphaxad, son of Shem. So that shows how these videos are going to be strongly connected. What we're going to do is read this together, just in case those of you out there, well, for those of you that may not even heard of this before, we'll read it together and then we'll come back and discuss it further. This chapter is following the account of the Tower of Babel. Let's read this part. And Canaan saw the land of Lebanon to the river of Egypt, that it was very good. And he went not into the land of his inheritance to the west, that is to the sea. So the way we interpreted this was that Canaan was supposed to be inhabiting West Africa or towards the Atlantic Ocean. That was supposed to be his portion. And he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, eastward and westward from the border of Jordan and from the border of the sea. And Ham, his father, and Cush and Mizraim, his brothers, said unto him, Thou hast settled in a land which is not thine, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do so, for if thou dost do so, thou and thy sons will fall in the land, and be accursed through sedition. For by sedition you have settled, and by sedition will thy children fall, and thou shalt be rooted out forever. Dwell not in the dwelling of Shem, for to Shem and to his sons did it come by their lot. Cursed art thou, and cursed shalt thou be beyond all the sons of Noah, by the curse by which we bound ourselves by an oath in the presence of the holy judge, and in the presence of Noah our father. But he did not hearken unto them, and dwelt in the land of Lebanon, from Hamath to the entering of Egypt, he and his sons until this day. And for this reason that land is named Canaan. It's a very interesting account that the book of Jubilees gives us. I wanted to try a search for an answer. What does the Bible say about why the Canaanites were in the Holy Land? This is what came up. It doesn't answer the question, but it is interesting to read. It says, the Canaanites are mentioned often in the Hebrew Bible. The stories say that God promised to give the land of the Canaanites, along with land belonging to several other groups, over to the Israelites after they escaped from Egypt. So this is a perspective you can take from the Bible, that God is taking the land from one group of people and then giving it to another. So in this case, to the Israelites. That's what makes this account from the book of Jubilees very interesting, and it can change our perspective because it's saying that the Canaanites weren't supposed to be in the Holy Land, and that they're going to be accursed and they're going to be rooted out forever. So then you can see the conquest of Canaan, is it fulfilling these words? And it gets more interesting because when we think about the territory, how it's the land of Lebanon, and we learned that the book of Jubilees is saying that was a portion of Arphaxad, and we go to the genealogy, we can learn that the Israelites descend from Arphaxad, son of Shem. So then you can almost see it, the conquest of Canaan, as descendants of Arphaxad reclaiming land that was supposed to belong to Arphaxad. So that's what is really interesting about this account. Sorry, I keep going to the wrong page. But it's difficult to know what to make of this, because we've only been working with a few chapters from the book of Jubilees, not with the whole book. We're not trying to vouch for the whole book. So we've said that in one of our previous videos. We've just been working with mainly with these portions. So we're not going to try come to an opinion on the book of Jubilees in this video, but we'll just say a few interesting things. So it says that the only community, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, is the only community in modern Christendom that holds First Enoch and Jubilees in such high regard. But what about the other churches? So the other churches, the Eastern Orthodox, the Catholic, the Protestant, they consider Jubilees to be pseudepigrapha. I've never heard of that word before, so if you're like me and that's new, I'll show you what it means. So falsely attributed works. So that's the opinion of most of Christendom about the book of Jubilees. But we're not going to try judge the whole book in this video. That would need its own video. But just for our learning, we can see that not all of Christendom views the book of Jubilees in this way. So let me know what you think about the book of Jubilees and this very interesting account about Canaan seizing Palestine wrongfully. In our recent recap, we have spoken about all the sons of Shem except for Arphaxad. And we are building this map from the book of Jubilees. So why have we got Arphaxad here? I would like to try explain this. The portion that came for Arphaxad, I found this one of the most difficult to interpret. So the way that we tried to approach this was thinking about the genealogy, so tracing this genealogy of Arphaxad and going down and thinking about these different nations. If we research these different nations, could we find information, let's say puzzle pieces, that could point to the portion of Arphaxad to help us with our understanding of Arphaxad? So that was the idea, and this is where we've always placed Arphaxad. So I'm just going to show you one avenue that we explored, and then we'll come back to discuss this further. So the interesting things that we came across, that other researchers have come across before us, was with the Edomites and Esau. So that's the way we went, and we even created a playlist for Esau, what to know about Esau or Edom. Because research, let's go to the map. Researchers came across something very interesting. This is the 1584 Ortelius map of Africa, noticing Agag in a few different locations. We have Agag. Now in the Bible we have Agag, king of the Amalekites, and the Amalekites descend from Esau. So we could say this is an Edomite name in southern Africa. So why would the cartographer put this name on the map? And then another thing that was, if you say discovered, or that people came across, was the similarity of how you say Zaire. So the former Republic of Zaire, we know it as Congo today, and the biblical location Zaire. Let me play this for you so you can hear how close it is.
Strong's H 8165. Seir. Seir.
So what do you think? Is it just a coincidence, the similarity? Now when I see this name in the Bible, I pronounce it Seir. So it's not to try and make it sound like the country or the former country, but it is very similar. So it's two things that you could say could go together with Agag and the Amalekites, and then also that similarity with the biblical location, because Sa'ir is connected to the story of the Edomites. So we're going to mention that because we have another playlist, the history of North Africa and the Mediterranean. Very interesting stories in the book of Jasher, another book of the Apocrypha, like the book of Jubilees. There is an account of Angeas, king of Africa, and another video we did, children of Esau being helped by the king of Africa. So in the book of Jasher, it speaks about a war between the children of Esau and the children of Sa'ir, so Horites, and the children of Esau being helped by the king of Africa. And the interpretation that we thought was best was linking this to Carthage, the ancient kingdom of Carthage, and the modern day country of Tunisia. So we tried to create this map to see if we could think about this account from the book of Jasher and also consider it with other things that have been discovered. We noticed on one of these maps of Africa, Paran, and there's a connection between Paran and Sa'ir. So very interesting, this video with this map. So it just gives us more to think about, because we have these connections with the Congo and this map with Agag. But then further to the north, we have maps showing locations called Paran, which is another biblical location. So further to the north, which gives us more to consider for the Edomites. Now another thing I'd like to speak about with the Amalekites is this Bible verse. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verse 29. Just want to focus on this part where it says, the Amalekites live in the Negev. This is the NIV Bible. If we go to the King James, it says, the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. So different translations, different Bibles. Now I know many of the viewers will be aware of this, but maybe from a different Bible verse, because other researchers have been speaking about this. This is from Genesis 13 with Abraham, the story of Abraham in Egypt. So it says, and Abraham went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. So it's interesting, the different variations. So this one, into the south, but with the Amalekites it says, in the land of the south, but then some Bibles interpret this as the Negev. If we go to a few maps so we can learn about the Negev. So the Negev desert, you can see the modern day countries of Israel and Jordan and Egypt. And I'll go to a bigger map so we can just show where we are looking for the Negev desert. We've got some interesting and important things to discuss from that part. If you did watch this video, you'll remember how we were asking, should we be looking for a large land in the south in terms of the Holy Land or the land of Canaan? So very interesting, because if we think about this map of Africa, could it be that simple? If we think again about Genesis 13:1, that Abraham went into the south. So if you're in Egypt and you're going into the south, where are you going? It would be nice if it was that simple, but it's not, because different Bibles will say that Abraham went into the Negev in a similar way to the example of the Amalekites. Now it's difficult to sometimes present this information. You don't want to put things out there that are false, But how do you know they're false unless it's investigated and it's proven wrong? So it's very interesting, the example of the Amalekites, because with the KJV saying the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, what about those maps where we saw Agag on those maps of Africa, in southern Africa, and we know in the Bible Agag, king of the Amalekites. So you could see how those details could actually work, how the Bible is saying the Amalekites dwelt in the land. Let me just read it again. If I go to the right one, yeah, this one. They dwelt in the land of the south, so it's referring to a region. And then we saw those maps, which we can consider this southern regions of Africa. So very interesting, and it could be important. So that explains why we have Arphaxad curving southwards to show those things that we were coming across. But placing Arphaxad here was not based on the interpretation of the portion that the book of Jubilees gives us. And that's what we really want to do, because we're trying to build this map using the book of Jubilees. So at the end of the video, we might speak about bias and making mistakes. But I want to continue our video exploring Arphaxad, son of Shem. So maybe the idea wasn't wrong to explore these different names or these different nations, these descendants. But should we maybe have considered the less famous names? Could they actually help to start to interpret this portion for Arphaxad? Before we do that exploration of trying to learn about some of the less well-known names for these descendants of Arphaxad, I thought it might be nice to do something which could be revision for some, but then helpful to others who could be relatively new to the Bible. So we're going to speak about the nations that come from Arphaxad. So if we trace this genealogy down, I'm not going to read all the names out, but until we get to one of the most important names of the Bible, Abraham. So we have Abraham's father as Terah, and we have three sons of Terah: Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Haran, we have two important nations, the Moabites and the Ammonites. And it might be nice to look at this visually, this genealogy, because we read the Bible and maybe we don't fully realize what's happening. So let's speak about this. Okay, so the Moabites and the Ammonites from Haran. Now Nahor, the brother of Abraham, it doesn't give the descendants. We will speak about this in the video. But if we focus on Abraham, we have the Israelites, the Edomites, the Ishmaelites. And then these sons here are known as the sons of Keturah. So we have three wives of Abraham. The Israelites and the Edomites descend from Abraham's first wife, Sarah. The Ishmaelites descend from the union between Abraham and Hagar. And Hagar, we learn, was an Egyptian and was the handmaid of Sarah. And the third wife was called Keturah. So that's how these sons are known. They're referred to as the sons of Keturah as a way of distinguishing, in a way of distinguishing them from the Ishmaelites, the Edomites, and the Israelites. So I just think it's important for us to maybe see it this way, that a lot of the nations that oppress the Israelites or are enemies of the Israelites in the Bible, it's a very close family. So it's a family affair with the surrounding nations. So I think it's important for us to see it this way, that we are aware of this, that a lot of the adversaries for the Israelites were nations that are very close to akin, if that's the way you say it. Okay, let's go on that exploring now for some of the less well-known names in this genealogy for Arphaxad. What happened to the sons of Keturah? We're going to learn that Abraham sent these sons away. But I'd like to read a few Bible verses so we can learn about the difficulties that came to Abraham because of the choices that he made, and also the blessings that he received and the promises. So let's read from Genesis 12. The Lord had said to Abraham, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So it's very important for us to think about what Abraham is leaving behind, the difficult choices that he made, but also the great promises and the blessings that he was promised by God, and also that all peoples on earth will be affected by this. So with this in mind, we're going to read now about Abraham sending the sons of Keturah away. So this is Genesis 25. While Abraham was still alive, he gave gifts to the sons of Hagar and Keturah. He also sent their sons to live in the east, far from his son Isaac. And when Abraham died, he left everything to Isaac. So this also could have been difficult for Abraham, but we know that Isaac would be the son of the promise. This promise is being passed on to Isaac and then to Jacob and then carried on through the Israelites. So difficult choices and decisions that Abraham had to make, sending these sons away. There could be something that we miss here with this Bible verse as well. We might think there's not a lot of information here, but if Abraham was in the Holy Land and he's sending these sons away to live in the east, that could also show you or give you something to think about for the Holy Land, that they're being sent away to the east. So let's think about this, because we do get some interesting details from Josephus, from his work, if we read from here. Now this is also speaking about what happened to the sons of Keturah. Now for all these sons and grandsons, Abraham contrived to settle them in colonies, and they took possession of Troglodytis and the country of Arabia the Happy, as far as it reaches to the Red Sea. I saw something interesting on this map. This is a 1650 map of Africa. I'll just zoom in to where it shows Troglodytica. Let's go one more zoom in. Looks like a large region, Troglodytica, to the west of the Red Sea, to the east of the Nile River. So I was just wondering, could this be what Josephus is referring to, where it says they took possession of Troglodytis? And when it says Arabia the Happy, we learned this could be referring to Arabia Felix. So predominantly we're thinking the modern day country of Yemen. So very interesting, the information coming to us from Josephus. Is this where the descendants of Abraham, so the sons by Keturah, were sent to live? So I'm just going to repeat that again, because it could be quite important to think about this. If the Bible says they were sent to live in the east, so this region we're looking at, could we say that this is to the east of the Holy Land? Before we leave the family of Abraham, we should have also mentioned that Ishmael was sent away, and we do learn in the Bible that was very difficult for Abraham. And there's also an important nation from the sons of Keturah, the Midianites, We could have mentioned the Midianites. They also are one of the nations that oppressed the Israelites. And there seems to be a very close connection between the Ishmaelites and the Midianites. We can see this in this question. Who purchased Joseph, the Ishmaelites or the Midianites? And in this Bible verse, it first says Midianite merchants, and then it says to the Ishmaelites. So there seems to be a very close connection. Some might say that the Midianites are the same as the Ishmaelites. And it's interesting that the book of Jubilees could give us an explanation, because it says that the Ishmaelites and the sons of Keturah, that they mingled with each other. So that's interesting that we get this information from the book of Jubilees. What we're going to do now is go back in the genealogy, back in the timeline to Eber. And Eber has two sons, Peleg and Joktan. And the Bible gives us the 13 names, the 13 sons of Joktan. So some of these names, I don't think many of us will be familiar with. And we're going to see what interesting things we can find by exploring some of these names. This is the Wikipedia entry for Joktan. It says, there is an Arab tradition that Joktan was the progenitor of the purest tribes of southern Arabia. Now this statue is of a South Arabian king. It's not saying this is a statue of Joktan. So according to Arab genealogy, Joktan is the ancestral figure of the Chaldeans. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. 3 of Joktan's sons have connections to South Arabia. Sheba is identified as the ancient South Arabian kingdom of Saba. And if we click on Sheba, it takes us to the kingdom of Sheba. So this is a famous name because most of us know the stories of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. But there's going to be debate, where was this kingdom? Was it Arabia? Was it Ethiopia? Or was it Meroe? We can't go in that direction, but we're going to speak more about this name Sheba. Okay, Hazarmaveth has been identified with the South Arabian region of Hadramaut, and I'll show you a map for this region. So we're in the modern day region of Yemen, the country of Yemen. Okay, Hadaram is connected to a fortress to the south of Yemen's Sana'a. Again, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And there's something interesting with this as well, because if we go to the page on Sana'a, it says, according to Islamic sources, Sana'a was founded at the base of the mountains of Jabal Nukum by Shem, the son of Noah, after the latter's death. So very interesting how it's saying that Shem could have been in these regions founding this city. And there's another connection with another son of Joktan, because it says that the ancient name of Sana'a was Azal. So if we just go back to the genealogy chart, so we can just see some of these sons that we've mentioned. So we had Sheba, just waiting for it to load. So we had Sheba, Hazarmaveth, Hadoram, and also Uzal. Another detail that connects Joktan to this region is in Genesis 10, because it says the region where they lived stretched from Misha toward Sephar. And some scholars connect Sephar, if we go back to this map, I'm going to find the right map. I think it might have been on this page. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but here it says Zafar. So there's connections with Sephar in the Bible with the country of Yemen. So this is very interesting for the Joktanites. There's something very interesting with this genealogy. We've spoken about Sheba of Joktan, but there's also a Sheba descendant of Jokshan, one of the sons of Keturah. This is Genesis 25, verse 3. Jokshan had Sheba and Dedan. So it's very interesting, these brothers, Sheba and Dedan, because we also have a Sheba that's descended from Cush. So this is where it gets interesting, because we learn that Cush has a son called Ramah, and it says the sons of Ramah were Sheba and Dedan. So is this just a coincidence that we have two brothers, Sheba and Dedan, descended from Cush, but then also two brothers, Sheba and Dedan, descended from Jokshan? But it doesn't end there, because we see that there is Havilah, a descendant of Cush, and you may have seen that there is a Havilah of Joktan. So are these coincidences, or is there something for us to learn here with these genealogies? Now, we saw the connections with Arabia, but there's also potential connections to Africa with the Joktanites. On this map, I noticed here it says the Amalekites. Now we might think that that could be connected to Havilah, and it might be, but some scholars connect this to Obal. So Obal of Joktan, so Obal or Oval, so the Amalekites. So that's interesting. And there are connections with Havilah and East Africa. This is Zayla. It says, in the Middle Ages, the Jewish traveler Benjamin of Tudela identified Zayla with the biblical location of Havilah. So there are some different theories out there about Havilah, but there are connections with East Africa and Somaliland as well. I've created a highlighted area here on our map to show what we were finding with our exploring some of those descendants of Arphaxad. And thinking along those same ideas as we were speaking about earlier in the video, if we're finding evidence for descendants of Arphaxad in this region, could that point to the portion of Arphaxad? But then, what about where we have always placed Arphaxad? Does that mean we've been way off? I don't think so, so we'll talk about that. I'd like to speak now about what is the identity of Arphaxad. We know there's a very strong identity with Ashur, son of Shem, that the Assyrians come from Ashur. But what about Arphaxad? Josephus says that the Arphaxadites are now called Chaldeans. And I've gone to an interesting source, another book from the Apocrypha. It's called the Book of Judith, to see how it is saying that the identity of Arphaxad is that of the Chaldeans. But now this is speaking about the Israelites. So it says, this people are descended of the Chaldeans. So if we go to our genealogy chart, it's saying that the Israelites are descended from the Chaldeans, according to the Book of Judith. But where are the Chaldeans in this genealogy chart? We don't really see any name that seems close to Chaldean. So this is where we said we're going to come back to Nahor, the brother of Abraham. In Genesis 22, we learn the sons of Nahor, the brother of Abraham. And it's this name that is important for what we are researching, because if we go to Ur of the Chaldees, this famous ancient city, it's also known as Ur Kasdim, and we can see where we can have, or where we can find the name Kesed. So I've highlighted it here. So could we also say it as Kesadim? So this is important to try and understand the identity of Abraham. If we read this verse from Genesis 15, verse 7, he also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans, to give you this land to take possession of it. So Ur of the Chaldees, or Ur of the Chaldeans, this is where Abraham is being brought out of to come into the land of Canaan. Now some scholars might say that the Chaldeans come from Kesed, son of Nahor. But I want to read something to you that I came across when I was busy researching for the video. This is from the website Abarim, and the entry is Kesed. It says, Jones' Dictionary of Old Testament Proper Names is so opposed to the idea that the Chaldeans could be descended from Kesed because the Chaldeans are mentioned 11 chapters prior to Kesed. And this does make sense because what it's saying is, how can the Chaldeans come from Kesed, son of Nahor, if they already mentioned much earlier? And we can also make sense of that with the example we read from the book of Judith, saying that the Israelites are descendant of the Chaldeans. Because if we look at this chart, that would mean that the Israelites were traced back to the Chaldeans through Abraham. So it must go further back. So this is why the book of Jubilees is very interesting, because it does give us potentially an answer. Because we have Orah, the daughter of Ur. So according to the book of Jubilees, there was actually a person called Ur, and here we see Ur, son of Kesed. So just to keep it simple, what we're learning from the book of Jubilees is that this name Kesed is going further back. So it must be an important name that's being carried down even into the time of Nahor, the brother of Abraham. And I have seen some researchers speculate whether the name Kesed could actually be in the name Arphaxad. Before we start to think about where was the Chaldees, I would like to try and bring the video together. We spent quite a bit of time to try and build a bit of a foundation for this video, and we were thinking about the difficulties that Abraham had to face, the difficult choices. So part of that difficulty would be leaving, what are you leaving behind? So not just maybe people, but it's also an identity. So Abraham being brought out of Ur of the Chaldees, or Ur of the Chaldeans. So we're learning that could be part of the identity of Abraham. So that's something that he's leaving behind. It's an identity. If Abraham had stayed where he was, then he may have been seen as a Chaldean. But leaving Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, to be a stranger in the land, you've lost that identity. And he's putting all his trust in God that this promise is going to be fulfilled, that he's going to become a father of many nations. We're going to look at two maps for where we are presented that the land of the Chaldees or Chaldea was. So we see here Chaldea. This would be the modern day country of Iraq. And we'll go to another map. So a similar interpretation for Chaldea. And we're going to stay with this one because it also just shows the Red Sea here, which is going to be important. Let's go to the book of Jubilees to read the first part of the portion that came for Arphaxad. And for Arphaxad came forth the third portion, all the land of the region of the Chaldees, to the east of the Euphrates, bordering on the Red Sea. So if we go back to the map, we can see that the first part works. So we see Chaldea to the east of the Euphrates, but it doesn't border on the Red Sea, because here we see the Red Sea. So is the book of Jubilees showing a problem or revealing a problem with this geography, with these maps? But that doesn't mean it's going to be straightforward for us So that's what we're going to try to discuss now. I would like to just learn a little bit more about where the Chaldees was. If we read this part here, it says, so we're thinking about the Chaldees and the Chaldeans, a name of a land and its inhabitants in the southern portion of Babylonia that possibly was not recognized as Chaldea until several hundred years after Moses. Okay, so for Chaldea and the Chaldeans, we're thinking Babylonia. And just one more detail, it says the general name for the area in the earliest period is unknown, since it was part of Sumer, see Shinar. So the biblical land of Shinar. There is scholarship that connects Shinar with Sumer. So if we go back to our map, where we see Ashur, son of Shem, this is where we have been looking for the land of Shinar. So we'll just explain this quickly. We see that it says Shinar came for Ashur, son of Shem. So we have Ashur here to represent Shinar, and it's saying that the Chaldees was in the region of Sumer or Shinar. So that would mean that we're looking for, well, we would be looking for the Chaldees in this region based on those details. But this is where it's difficult for us because it says that the Chaldees is to the east of the Euphrates. But the river that we're looking at is the Nile River. So this is where it also is difficult for our interpretation. But then you may have noticed, those of you who've got a keen eye, when we're looking at Troglodytica, notice it says Babyloni. So why on this map does it have Babyloni in this region where we are looking for the land of Shinar and Babylonia? Is this the region where the events of the Tower of Babel occurred? So very interesting, and this is going to lead into the end of the video where we're going to think about bias and also mistakes. Before we go into the final part of the video, speaking about difficulties that face us with this research, I wanted to just mention a few things that we could have mentioned. So we notice here we have Saba in the country of Yemen. This could be what they were referring to when we were speaking about Sheba of Joktan. They said Sheba could be connected with the kingdom of Saba. And also we could have mentioned that because we are looking in these regions for the Chaldees, we do have the Red Sea in this vicinity. So it said that the Chaldees to the east of the Euphrates, bordering on the Red Sea. So that could work with our interpretation, but then the difficulty is the Euphrates. So we need to just say this as well, because it really does show the difficulty, and also you don't want to sound as if you're contradicting yourself or you're putting forth contradictions, but we've been looking for the Euphrates in West Africa, and we've made a video looking for a tributary of the Euphrates in Nigeria. But now we're considering the Chaldees in East Africa because we want to trust the map, what we've already done, that we are looking in this region for the land of Shinar. And on these pages it's saying that the Chaldees was a part of Shinar or Sumer. But then how do we make sense of this? That now we're seeing this reference to the Euphrates in regards to the Chaldees. So it's not straightforward for us either, and we'll speak about that in the end of the video. I think that was it for this part. I'm sure there could be many things that we're missing on these maps. It does make the research very interesting because you never know what you're going to come across. So I hope you enjoyed the video so far, and that you maybe learned something and come across something that you didn't know or you weren't aware of before. Before we speak about bias and mistakes, for this final part of the video, I would like to say something that's important, because maybe some people might be worried about what we've said in the video. With where we've placed Arphaxad, are we really this far off? Just to be clear, so there's no confusion with this, we haven't finished the portion for Arphaxad. We just did that first part. We haven't spoken about the land of Lebanon, Sinir, Ammana. So there's a lot more to the portion of Arphaxad than just that first part. So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to delete this or say that we are wrong until we're proven wrong. So there's a lot more to learn about Arphaxad. This will just be maybe part one for what we're trying to do with thinking about Arphaxad. And we really would like to maybe try to focus more on the Israelites, because on the channel we've got a playlist for Esau, but we don't have a playlist for the Israelites. So I'm thinking about doing something like that, not making any promises, but that's what's on my mind. So a playlist for the Israelites. Okay, so we're not going to be able to do everything in this one video, but let's speak now about bias. So one thing that I've learned, and hopefully I'm not as guilty of anymore, or less guilty nowadays, is sometimes you feel like you have to say something or you have to put something forward, even if you're not sure, and you might know that it's weak, you feel like you have to put it forward. So what I mean is trying to interpret these portions. Because of the insecurities that we have as humans, sometimes you think, I need to have an answer, because if I don't have an answer, then is it going to undermine what we've already done? If I don't have an answer, does that mean that maybe all that we've done is false? So then, because you have that weakness or that insecurity, you might start to cling to things, you might push things that you know are not strong, just so that you have an answer. And I think we have been guilty of that. I think that has led us into making some mistakes that we have made on the channel. I don't want to be too negative, but those are the dangers with this kind of research. So I think that's something that I've learned. I would like to try put that into practice. So when we don't know, we should just say that we don't know. And then at least then you're not going to be putting forward things that are false or misleading. So that's what I'm saying at the moment. I think it's been a very interesting video. I think we have learned a lot, but I don't want to push what I'm not sure about or I don't know. So thank you for watching this video. This really is going to be a part one. I hope we get to do a part two. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in another video.